This might piss a few people off, but I think The Wolf of Wall Street is a fucking great movie.
I create nothing. I own. Capitalism at its finest.
On paper, it's a 3-hour marathon of fraudulence, hedonism, and debauchery. Kitted with a charismatic protagonist to boot.
So charismatic.
This is probably what led to the initial poor reception by critics, accusing it of glorifying excessive lifestyles.
This is good.
But Scorsese, throughout his career, has demonstrated a love for the depth of cinema, which leads me to believe Wolf is not simply a 200-minute glorification of sex and drugs as it may appear. It's also not a biopic which explicitly recounts the history of the real Jordan Belfort, but rather it's a construction of a new character, Scorsese's Belfort, and what he represents. So who is this character? He's the archetype of the profit incentive within late capitalism.
There is no nobility in poverty. Deal with your problem by becoming rich!
Belfort is like a snake oil salesman of the American dream. He's selling the idea of becoming rich when he alone reaps the benefits. Belfort is almost like a character of capitalist mythology. Traditionally, mythology would personify elements of human nature into one specific character to make them relatable. The cornerstone of capitalist philosophy is that if we're all greedy, we can win together. Right?
You make your clients money at the same time it's advantageous to everyone, correct?
No.
But when a society is set up in a way that glorifies self-interest,
NFT.
that mutually beneficial greed evolves into excess.
How much is enough?
Not a question of enough, pal. Somebody wins, somebody loses.
Scorsese's portrayal of Belfort is all the elements of capitalist greed taken to its absolute. Belfort is defined by his lust for more, and that dictates all of his actions in the film. So as a character, he represents the greed inherent within late capitalism, and so he personifies them archetypally.
It's a pretty natural extension of corporate capitalist logic, which is I will exchange a certain amount of cash for this substance. Having to obey every impulse and gratify every desire seems to me to be a strange kind of slavery.
Belfort is not your typical anti-hero. Scorsese doesn't tell the classic Hollywood story of the greedy antagonist and their subsequent downfall, the legend of Icarus revisited. Belfort never actually pays the price for his own greed. Think of when he went to jail. His punishment was extremely generous relative to the gravity of his crime. And although the story of the greedy banker who flies too close to the sun and gets their comeuppance is a very compelling narrative, Scorsese's decision to let Belfort off lightly is far more reflective of the judicial reality of neoliberal society.
You should see what's going on at the bigger firms.
But in the painful years since the Great Recession,
Collateralized debt obligations?
CDO.
the grand total of bankers behind bars tonight is 1.
It's typical for a film to be used as a piece of commentary. The filmmaker will construct a world that mirrors ours in some way and dramatize certain characteristics of it to leave the viewer with a piece of the filmmaker's sentiments. But what's so genius about The Wolf of Wall Street is that it totally disregards this expectation to make a commentary on the greed of Belfort.
So that it wouldn't be a matter of making comments on him and his bad behavior, but putting the audience into the mindset, that behavior, that mentality.
This is probably why many criticize the film for endorsing Belfort's excess
And I approve this message.
by refusing to condemn it. But I disagree.
I disagree.
Scorsese takes the artist's prerogative, social commentary, and passes it on to the viewer. Some left the theaters with a contempt for Belfort's lifestyle, but some found it inspiring, showing that the excess and fraud that Belfort represents are still valued by a decent portion of society. These differing interpretations show us that the film is reflecting your attitudes towards the capitalism that Belfort represents. The Wolf of Wall Street isn't a statement on the morality of neoliberal capitalism personified in its protagonist. It's a question.